Hello and welcome to Cultural Wealth Wednesdays. I'm thrilled you joined us today for what I believe will be a transformative conversation about recognizing, honoring, and leveraging the incredible assets that exist within our diverse communities. I'm Dr. Krystal L. Clemons, founder and CEO of Our Village Consulting, and I've dedicated over 15 years of my career to a simple but powerful belief. Every student, every family, and every community possesses incredible wealth that, when recognized and cultivated, can transform educational outcomes. As someone who has spent my career in school counseling and counselor education, I've witnessed firsthand how traditional deficit-based thinking can limit our vision of what's possible. But I've also seen the magic that happens when we shift our perspective to recognize the cultural wealth that surrounds us every day. Cultural Wealth Wednesdays is our weekly space to explore, celebrate, and learn how to leverage the diverse forms of capital that exist in our communities, what researcher Terry Yasso calls community cultural wealth. We're talking about the aspirational capital that drives families to dream big for their children, the linguistic capital found in multilingual households, the familial capital that creates strong support networks, the social capital built through community connections, the navigational capital that helps families persist through challenges, and the resistant capital that emerges from communities advocating for change. Each Wednesday, we'll dive deep into practical strategies for identifying cultural wealth in your school or community, building authentic partnerships that honor diverse perspectives, creating programming that builds on existing community assets, challenging systems that perpetuate deficit thinking, and developing your own cultural competence as an educator or leader. Cultural Wealth Wednesdays isn't just about changing how we think. It's about changing how we act. It's about building the kind of inclusive, asset-based educational communities where every child can thrive. So let's begin this journey together. Let's challenge ourselves to see wealth where others might see deficits. Let's build bridges where others might see barriers. Let's create the villages our children deserve. Welcome back to Cultural Wealth Wednesdays. Last week, we explored how neurodivergent students from minoritized and marginalized communities possess rich cultural wealth that schools often overlook. Well, today we're going to get a little bit more practical. How do educational leaders redesign these systems to recognize, honor, and leverage neurodivergent cultural wealth? This isn't just about fixing identification gaps. That's too easy. It's too easy to fix the gap. But it's about transforming how we conceptualize neurodivergence, support, and what counts as expertise in cultural and educational planning. Traditional special education operates from double deficit thinking. Neurodivergent students are often seen as lacking typical development, and students from minoritized communities are seen as lacking resources. This double deficit obscures the reality and obscures the fact that these students possess sophisticated cultural and neurodivergent strengths. Cultural wealth frameworks flip this completely. Instead of asking, what's wrong with this student? We ask, what strengths does the student bring? Instead of, what does this family lack? We ask, what cultural wealth does this family possess? This isn't just feel-good rhetoric. Right? It's transformative for your educational planning. When we recognize that the autistic Latina student who struggles with classroom noise has developed sophisticated self-advocacy skills, we build on those skills rather than just providing accommodations. When we acknowledge that the Black student with ADHD has creativity and hyper-focused abilities that schools often fail to channel, we design learning experiences that leverage those strengths. Research on strengths-based approaches to neurodivergence show better outcomes, higher self-esteem, and more effective support strategies. Combined with cultural wealth recognition, this is transformative. For example, eye contact expectations in autism assessments don't account for cultural norms where direct eye contact with authority figures is considered disrespectful. Social communication assessments often miss that some students are code switching. What looks like social difficulty might be navigating multiple cultural contexts. Culturally responsive assessments mean involving families in describing what typical development looks like in their cultural context. It means providing evaluation in home languages. It means understanding that executive function challenges might be masked by strong family support systems. The extended family providing structure that makes difficulties less visible at home. Here's what this looks like in a practical situation. Before formal assessment, meet with families to understand what cultural practices, family structures, and community supports are already in place. Ask what concerns them about their child's development in their cultural context. Include cultural informants, which could be community members who can provide context for student behavior. Use dynamic assessment approaches that evaluate how students respond to culturally relevant supports, not just static measures of current functioning. And always assessing a student's strongest language. Okay, I have a hot take. Ready for it? Here it goes. Individual education plans, or IEPs as we know them, should be called individual and cultural education plans because they need to integrate both student-specific needs and cultural wealth assets. So here's what that looks like. Start your IEP meetings by asking families to share cultural strategies that work at home. The Somali family whose autistic son responds better to certain religious music. How can we incorporate that understanding? The Vietnamese family who uses specific herbal remedies to help their ADHD daughter with sleep regulation. How does that inform our whole child approach? Write IEP goals that build on cultural and linguistic strengths instead of just student will make eye contact. Maybe student will demonstrate active listening through culturally appropriate engagement strategies. Instead of only English language goals for multilingual students, goals that leverage home language strengths for learning. Include cultural accommodations alongside traditional ones. If a student regulates better with culturally specific music, food, or sensory items from home, build that into the plan. If extended family members provide support that's more effective than paraprofessionals, create ways to honor and facilitate that. Most importantly, the families are the experts. Point blank, period. The IEP meeting shouldn't be professionals telling families what the child needs. It should be collaborative planning that recognizes family navigational, familial, and linguistic capital as essential expertise. Beyond individual student support, schools need systemic redesign. Universal Design for Learning already recognizes neurodivergent diversity. Cultural wealth frameworks add recognition of cultural diversity in neurodivergent experience. This means creating sensory-friendly spaces that also honor cultural sensory preferences. Quiet corners might include culturally relevant calming items. Movement breaks might incorporate cultural dance or physical practices. Fidget tools may include cultural objects that serve regulatory functions. It means flexible grouping that recognizes some neurodivergent students from collectivist cultures might prefer collaborative work, while individualistic approaches assume all neurodivergent students need isolated work. Not true. Ask students and families what learning contexts work best culturally and neurologically. Rethink discipline approaches. Restorative justice practices often work better than punitive discipline for neurodivergent students, and they align with cultural values in many communities of color. When behavior challenges arise, ask what cultural or neurodivergent needs aren't being met before asking what consequences should apply. Create affinity spaces for neurodivergent students of color. These students need community with others who share both cultural identity and neurodivergent experience. Don't force them to choose between a disability identity group and racial ethnic affinity spaces. Don't make them choose because they are both and. System change requires workforce change. Again, here we go. Might be stepping on some toes, but that's all right. Educational leaders need to invest in professional development that integrates cultural responsiveness and neurodivergent affirming practices. These shouldn't be separate trainings. They need to be integrated because students hold multiple identities simultaneously. Train all staff, not just special educators, to recognize how neurodivergence presents across cultures. Help them understand implicit bias in neurodivergent identification and support. Teach them about cultural wealth frameworks and how to partner with families as experts. But training isn't enough. It's not. Hire neurodivergent educators. Actually, you already have some. They may or may not identify as neurodivergent. They may not even know they're neurodivergent. But trust me, you've got some neurodivergent educators in your building. Especially hire neurodivergent educators of color. They bring lived experience that no training can replicate. They model for students that neurodivergent people of color can be successful professionals. They often recognize needs and strengths that neurotypical educators miss. Also, hire staff from the students' cultural communities who understand the cultural context and can bridge between school and home. The school psychologist who speaks students' home languages, the school counselor who understands cultural family structures, the administrator who knows community cultural practices. Partner with community organizations serving neurodivergent individuals of color. They often have expertise that many schools tend to lack. Create these formal partnerships where community knowledge informs school practices and school resources support community work. So here's your Cultural Wealth Wednesday challenge for today. Identify one system in your school or district that needs redesign to better serve neurodivergent students from minoritized communities. It might be assessment, it might be IEP processes, it might be discipline, instruction, professional development, whatever. Convene a design team that includes neurodivergent people of color, both students and adults, families, educators, and community members. Use cultural wealth frameworks to guide redesign. Ask, how can we build on the aspirational, navigational, social, linguistic, familial, and resistance capital these students and families already possess? Again, as I said before, this is not going to be our last conversation on neurodivergence and cultural wealth. We'll be exploring these intersections of identity for a couple of weeks, and we're going to ask and look at how schools can truly serve all students in their full humanity. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell for Cultural Wealth Wednesdays. In the comments, I want you to share one practice that your school uses that honors neurodivergent cultural wealth, or at least one practice that you want to implement. Let's learn from each other as we create and build and redesign more just, inclusive educational systems.